Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the world's best investing podcast. Today, I'm going to explain why I still believe, and increasingly so, that Roblox is looking something like Meta for Gen Z. And I believe this is actually the only company that stands to give Meta real competition going forward, uh, essentially because they have extraordinary process power. And, this company really came to be from nothing by just iterating on this silly looking platform with ridiculous looking avatars based on user feedback forever. And now they have nearly 100 million daily active users. It's taken them ages to achieve that. But I believe that basically the journey from here to, say, 1 billion daily active users or two or something like that is much shorter than the journey from zero to 100 million DAOs. What happens is that Q1 2025 is a continued demonstration of this extraordinary process power. But before getting into that, let me just explain process power. Why is that important? Because in the network defined economy, in which platforms of this kind live, essentially, there's no reason for you as a user to join any particular platform other than them iterating faster than competitors and giving you more of what you want for less. So that is the essence of process power. Process power is what underpins every single moat in this kind of modern economy platform, like Hims, Netflix, Uber, etc. And so typically when you have a company with tremendous process power, success is really only a matter of time. Now, these guys have left behind a trail of decades of executing with very high process power, and everything has gone up and to the right. Little parenthesis, which is basically in 2021, Roblox decided to step up capex, and that hurt the financials in the short term. And you can see that in the written form of my update. So basically, you can see that as capex is going up, cash from operations, etc., went down. Revenue only really trended up. But remember that back in 2021, everyone was obsessed with the metaverse narrative until they weren't. And so the market interpreted the temporarily declining financials as the metaverse is dead kind of confirmation. However, if you look at the graph, now basically cash from operations has reached an all-time high, so has revenue. CapEx is coming back up. And so basically what you have is a much better looking business. Fundamentally, this was always a great looking business. I didn't see it to the point where I made a concentrated bet, partially because I wasn't so interested in making that bet because I already made it with my other picks that you know of. I think Peter Lynch always comes to mind in this kind of analysis, and it's you should buy what you know. There's a lot of stuff that I know intellectually is great, but I just don't have that sort of visceral conviction that I have that I may have with companies that I'm closer to their consumers, or maybe I'm a consumer myself. So it's a lot easier. But anyway, the point is that much of Roblox's capex over the past few years has gone to infrastructure. Infrastructure is important because it enables them to moderate content, right? So this is a platform initially for kids under the age of 13. And so being able to moderate in real time is very important for the sustainability of the business. But then the other thing that the infrastructure thing has done is it enables them to run proprietary AI models. And now they have models which enable content creators on Roblox to create 3D experiences on prompt. So they can just prompt a model, and then the model is going to create these experiences which otherwise Roblox creators had to code manually. And then they have another model for 4D experiences, which basically enable creators to infuse NPCs, non-playing characters, with actual realistic discourse, or maybe as a user with your avatar, you jump in a car and the car is sort of highly realistic and you can zoom into the dashboard and you can operate it. So like literally an ontology, right? So what's happening here is that Roblox is actually evolving into a singularity scaler, meaning that as AI models get better, more efficient, etc., the cost of creating engaging experiences on Roblox is going to go down. And so the iterative curve that the company has been on over the past few decades that has taken them from 0 to 100 million DAOs is now actually going to accelerate exponentially, just because they have these models which are going to allow much more content to emerge of a much broader variety, of a much higher quality. And so obviously this is going to translate into higher engagement levels. So that's why I think fundamentally the path from 100 million DAOs to 1 billion DAOs is going to be shorter than from 0 to 100 million. Now, the other thing that caught my attention when I first did a deep dive on Roblox is that actually the majority, well, let me put it this way. The concern was that this is a kids platform. And so one that is highly sensitive, meaning things can go wrong much more easily than with an adult platform, like, any other platform you can think of, Netflix, etc. And then the other thing is that if this is a kids platform, then the risk is that as kids grow up, then this platform goes out of fashion. However, users over the age of 13 accounted for 58.4% of all users just back in Q2 2023, so literally 5 minutes ago. And now users over the age of 13 account for 62% in Q1 2025. Now, this is up dramatically from Q2 2020, in which users over the age of 13 came in at 44.1%. So what's happening is Roblox is aging up the platform. And they are doing so by broadening genres on the platform. So at the beginning, it was just silly looking, stupid looking avatars, etc., doing silly little kids games. Now you have battle games, sports, racing, etc., shooter games too. And so that is basically aging up the platform. So the way they are consistently aging up the platform is a demonstration of process power. Philosophically, I explained why I think this is important. And by the way, if you want to break down each and every single one of my successful picks to date, Palantir nearly 20x, Spotify 7x right now, etc., it's just extraordinary process power. I think when you have an organization that has tremendous process power and is led by a founder operator, then success is really only a matter of time. But then you don't see extraordinary process power all the time. So it's actually quite delightful to study Roblox because it's just every single thing they do is a demonstration of it. So I was talking about how they've been aging up the platform, how cash from operations is going up. Revenue is growing really fast. If you want to look at the DAOs, I have the graph in the written form of the update, just tremendously fast growth. And simultaneously, these guys are exhibiting operating leverage. So operating expenses as a percentage of revenue came down from 67.38% in Q3 2022 to 52.31% in Q1 2025. Amazing operating leverage. And basically the margins are up because once again, Roblox has shown that they have world-class process power. More importantly, perhaps, and this is another very important component when looking at potential investments, these guys have demonstrated the ability to deploy capital because the CapEx was very, very heavy from 2021 to 2024. And what they've done is deploy an infrastructure which it basically turns them into a singularity scaler, as I was saying, and is allowing them to iterate much faster. So the curves that matter, and you could break this thesis down to a bunch of them, but one is aging, two is engagement, and three, I would say, is the breadth of content. Since it's actually a precursor of the former two, they're all going up, right? And so this is something that I'm increasingly comfortable betting on. In fact, right now, I would say that Roblox is a perfect instance of the kind of company that I like to invest in and the kind of company that I teach folks to spot in my Techstar Goldmine course. And so another thing that's very interesting, and it's qualitative, but I think that you're going to appreciate this. It's the fact that you can tell Roblox really cares for the stakeholders of the platform. On the one hand, the end customers, which are kids for the most part and aging up, as I was saying. Then on the other hand, the content creators. So every single quarter that I dig deep into Roblox, I see something that they're doing to optimize outcomes per dollar spent / invested in the case of creators for their stakeholders. So in Q1 2025, they released an automatic price optimization mechanism, meaning you as a creator, you come and post your experience. Let us do the price for you so that you basically make more money. What happens is that this feature has only been rolled out for game passes, so not for the whole platform and not fully geographically. So it's been launched in only certain geographies. And this feature has already increased the earnings of the median earnings for creators by 4%. And it's interesting that this has actually been a result, according to management, of a commitment to transparency broadly. So you have the feature, which is interesting, but then before that, management in the call actually talked about their commitment to algorithmic transparency and how they actually include as much data as they can about how the algorithm is driving search and discovery in the creators' dashboards. And you can see the quote that I have here in the written form of the update from David Basuki, and these guys just really care. They essentially, qualitatively, they're highly focused on improving outcomes for end customers. which is the users on one end and creators on the other end. So that is something that at this level, it doesn't happen much, combined with extraordinary management that's shareholder friendly. So the intersection of the two things is rare, right? And so generally the point is that as you look at what matters for the platform, these guys just compound those components of the thesis tremendously quarter over quarter. Let me give you another example. The top 11 to 50 experiences on the platform, so games that creators create, that's a bit of a redundancy, grew at over 100% in Q1 2025 versus just 5% a year ago. And then the top 100 creators are doing better on average. They earned 6.7 million on average in the last 12 months. So each of the top 100 creators, which is up 35% year over year. Why do I make so much emphasis on the creator side? Well, because this is ultimately an ecosystem. Roblox is building an economy. So when you see DAOs growing very fast on the one end, it means end consumers are delighted with the experience. They're telling their friends about it. Hours spent on the platform are obviously up big time. And then you see all these metrics on the creator side of the equation. You just know that this is going to translate into higher satisfaction levels for content creators. And so what that means is there's going to be more content, better content, broader variety of content. And that's the precursor to a bigger network. It's essentially the precursor to higher enterprise value. And so, I mean, conviction is not transferable, is it? But what's interesting is that when you spend a long time studying a company, as is the case with me, with many of these companies, Roblox, I think I've been studying for a few years now, you get the sense of, is this management team obsessed with enhancing enterprise value? And do they identify clearly what are the numbers they need to push forward to create it? And the answer with Roblox is yes. I mean, look, 2 minutes ago, this was a kids platform. It's no longer. It's actually aging up. 2 minutes ago, a very small percentage of the creators were making an overwhelming amount of the money. That's not happening anymore. The trend is actually reversing. So this is just something that I really like this company. And what I think, if you go and look at my original deep dive and other updates, etc., what I think is that, I mean, this is something very intangible, highly qualitative that I think I see investors missing out on in the network-defined economy a lot. Like if you look at any of these platforms that are now more widely accepted as tremendous investments, even recession hedges, as is the case with Netflix, people underestimate generally what extraordinary companies can do over the long term. Secondly, how quickly extraordinary companies can enhance shareholder value in the digital economy. Meaning that, I mean, if you look at a Costco, it's taken them a long time to create a lot of shareholder value. So decades to deliver hundreds of times your money as an early investor. But the basis of that is network effects, meaning that they're just compounding goodwill with both providers and consumers. And what they give, they essentially occupy the minds of these two respective stakeholders as the guy that gives you the best deal possible. And no one else gives you a better deal. So it's a no-brainer to just go and do deals with Costco. So these platforms are all doing the same. But network effects in the digital space are much faster. Obviously, I think that's self-explanatory. And then you have a fundamental new engine, which is AI, which just enables you to improve outcomes for these two stakeholders at an exponential pace. So I think that people forget about this because, you know, we had tariffs. Yesterday, we had this auction thing, which I would say could be concerning. But essentially, fundamentally, like businesses are perpendicular to the macroeconomy in that people need problems to be solved for them, and they are happy to pay you if you do it at a ridiculous price. And so AI, the concept of singularity scalers is so powerful just because it applies longitudinally to platforms across the network-defined economy. So with Palantir, it's like, you know, you have AI FDEs now as you have AI agents coming up. And so that makes the deployment, bespoke deployment, maintenance, and operation of Palantir's platform exponentially easy. Hence, exponentially more revenue, much better margins, therefore much higher free cash flow per share. Spotify, it basically understands you better than anything else after Google. I would say these guys, they're going to make exponentially more immersive experiences that are going to be tremendous, much more engaging, etc. Meta, the same. As AI models get better, as Zuckerberg spends more dollars on data centers, The apps honestly are getting increasingly addictive, scarily addictive. I'm considering myself deleting these apps because they keep you stupidly glued to the screen. So even though, I think most stock market investors like to focus on, 5% up, 5% down, auctions, tariffs, whatever kind of BS. What's happening here really is very real. And you're seeing this across a number of companies. Basically, these extraordinary world-class organizations that I've mentioned a bunch of them, are singularity scalers, and they're going to see the earning power increase exponentially as AI models get better. Roblox is one of them, right? So very, very interesting. Now, the other thing that I wanted to talk about today is, well, we've talked about a number of important metrics. You guys have a sense of what I mean by process power. Yes, free cash flow per share. If you look at the graph that I'm looking at in the screen now, and you guys can see this in the written form of the update, it's now trending back up. So what I think is going to happen now with Roblox stock is that the stock is just going to track free cash flow per share levels. These levels had been declining steadily since the end of 2020, just because, well, one, obviously a lot of growth was pulled forward with people living inside their homes and not being able to leave, and then the capex cycle. So I think that free cash flow per share is going up now, and I think that the stock is positioned to do very well, just because we're likely to not see such a rapid continued margin expansion for Roblox going forward, but I think we're going to see a lot of operating leverage from these models. I talked about the 3D models, 4D models. Actually, Roblox has something like, let me get you the number, 1,000. Well, I mean, they have hundreds of proprietary models that these guys are building that are basically, I mean, if you want to look at this at the extreme, it's going to be, I click a finger like this, click my fingers, and I have an experience for you guys as a consumer, right? So this is really what's going to happen. And yes, lastly, when David Baszucki, the CEO, was asked about the Shopify experience, he started talking about how they see the platform going to 300 million DAOs just based on gaming alone. And then the path from 300 million to 1,000 actually looks different, in that it requires maybe layering on top of the gaming thing other stuff like physical shopping. And so he talks about the Shopify deal with Roblox as being foundational, as being very early days. But he basically believes that Roblox can evolve to be a platform where people do physical shopping as they do stuff online, right? And so my view is, I'm going to stick a limb out here. When you see a company with such extraordinary process power, what they have is the ability to delight stakeholders at any point in time in the present, and they can sacrifice short-term financial performance to do that, right? So as the users on this platform age up, they're going to want to do more stuff on the platform. And eventually, I think these guys develop a feature that take them from being niche, people that like playing with silly-looking avatars, to basically I think a communication platform that cuts across demographics, such as, I talked about in the past in my written updates, deep dive and quarterly updates, about their voice communication feature. I think something like that eventually picks up to the point where people that use Roblox can communicate with people that don't use Roblox in the traditional sense on a daily basis as a utility, WhatsApp kind of thing. And so I think that 3 to 4 years on from now, we see Roblox deploy features like that, physical shopping, communication, etc., and we see this become a much more mainstream platform once they saturate the gaming space, which right now they believe they're at around 3% penetration, and they believe they can get to 10% penetration in the coming few years. So 10% gets them to 300 million DAOs. Anyway, point is, I think this is a wonderful company. I think this is going to get much bigger. The odds of that are very high. None of this is financial advice, by the way, but if you did enjoy this update, could you please share this with a friend whom you think will enjoy it? I'd be super grateful for that. And anyways, guys, take care and see you next time.